Then it was homecoming and football games and picking out our dresses for the prom. With my brother in some desert, dodging bullets when he wasn't dodging bombs. And we went from the land of brave and free to just being afraid to disagree. I was being brought down to my knees by the weight of the world.
So good morning. My name is Jennifer Wolfe. I'm a member of this church. I'm grateful for you allowing me to be here today. I'm grateful to be part of this church community and of this loving circle in which our little children and our big people can circle each other with love. Karen Kempf, who's a member of this church, told me a story not too long ago. We were walking on the beach. We were talking about leadership, and she told me about how when she was many years ago in a leadership class, and the professor was asking, well, what are the qualities of leadership? It was a male professor. And, people said, strong, task-focused, authoritative, knowing, knowledgeable. And Karen said, well, good leaders allow. And he hemmed and hawed and talked about it and, made a few sentences about it. But he never put the word on the board. And 30 years later, that still bothers her. It bothered me. How can we ensure that all voices are heard? How can we allow a different perspective, a different way? I told you all when I did my sermon on the conscious feminine a few months ago that I studied at the Conscious Feminine Leadership Academy in Cincinnati last summer. Very interesting. We are participating in the transformation of culture by creating, naming, and supporting leaders in the practice of conscious feminine values, truth-telling, empowerment, nurture with rigor, transparency, vulnerability, conscious collaboration, depth orientation, hospitality, and the capacity to hold paradox, especially the paradox of fostering individual gifts alongside fostering planetary and community well-being. And that's Mary Pierce Brosmer. Now that is a slightly different set of values than that professor probably had on that board. I think conscious feminine leadership is, for me, and I speak only for me and my view, and you are welcome to yours. What it means for me is transformative leadership. What it means for me is leading from the inside out, with knowing my own self. Now, some of you might know that I take ballroom dancing lessons, which is part of my Renaissance movement. And Meg Rohal and I take it together. And our teacher said to me the other day, I want you to learn how to dance from the inside out. not the outside in. And I want to learn how to lead from the inside out and not the outside in. So I know that it always starts with myself and knowing my own behaviors and my own values. I had a wonderful moment with one of my spiritual advisors when she said, Jennifer, I see what you're doing is you're shifting now from decision-making based on goals to decision-making based on your values. It's a shift. It's a feminine shift. You know, I always thought I knew myself pretty well. I thought I was, you know, at a young age, I would have described myself as a oh, I'll say that word again. I know it's an F word. Feminist. But you know, when you become a wife and a mother and a member of society and a member of the business world, you know, things start speeding up and you sometimes lose who you are and who your values are in them. Okay, at least that's kind of what happened to me. And then I found out there was another four-letter word at work. Free. Feminism, as I see it, is really about me being free. Free to live without oppression, my own as well as anyone else's. Feminine leadership is not oppressive. In other words, Angela Corey is not a conscious feminine leader. Our children are in danger from that kind of leadership. So this is not just about being a woman. This is about being conscious and of values. So, as I looked at myself and I said, okay, here I am on this journey, I found I'm not so free as I thought. How can I get free? Starting with my own self-knowledge. I read a wonderful book last summer called To Be a Woman. I thought I knew what that was. But one chapter that I read blew my mind. Blew my mind. Genia Pauli Haddon. She said, in our culture, we do not have a balance of masculine and feminine energies. She said, our culture only tells half the story, and let's see what that story looks like. So, in this essay, she explains how Carl Jung, relax, it's Carl Jung, an authority figure. Okay, he declared that we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. In easy terms, we could call that the yin and yang. So yang energy is masculine energy. Yin energy is feminine energy. And we all know we're looking for a balance, right? But, so if here's men, here's women, their two energies, our two energies, which of these energies do we really value in our culture, in our Western culture? Okay? So, the masculine yang energy is the model that Karen's professor had, right? Strong, authoritative, knowledgeable, punishing. We're going to get those little 14-year-olds that are out there shooting people. We're going to lock them up. We're going to get those girl runaways. We're going to lock them up. It's a crime to run away when you're a girl in Florida. Fast action, goal-oriented, judgmental, louder than, Father knows best, God the Father. More is better. And we have the market God, money. The pursuit of money, profit. Growth without restraint and not acceptance of limitations. We want that strong president, right? going to be tough. Okay, but there is another side of men. I know many of these people in this church, okay? Compassionate, caring, loving, nurturing, empathetic, responsive, listening, loyal, supportive, quiet. This is my father. Okay, except for the quiet part. Allowing, developing, serving, comforting, abundance. Okay, so if that's men, is that side valued? Hell no. You better not. Wait, that's not good. It is sort of symbolic, but you better not be perceived as weak in the business environment or in politics. Oh, no. And there's our anti-homosexuality. God, what? You've got anything that would be similar to women in your male self? Hell no. Weakness is fear. So this is a whole fear-based but glorified state. I mean, that's what's bringing our young people to war. Positioning, posturing, look at Russia. Look at all of us. Okay, so now we have the masculine energy and the feminine energy of women. So half the story is, so what are we supposed to be? What are we okay to be as women? Well, pretty, you know, not too loud. We need help, receptacles of seed, carriers, property. Easy to exploit. Every day I read the paper, there's one sentence in it that stuns me. There was an article not too long ago about a young woman, well, it was about a man who, as part of his whole drug world, had a young girl captive, a 16-year-old girl who was captive. And in the story, when they find out what's happening, he is prostituting her in a hotel, in a motel, with 50 men. 50! This is a runaway turned victim. 50. I had to sit down after that. But maybe I need to stand up. Okay, so that's weak. You know, that's as much as we're allowed in popular culture. I'm talking about the more subtle messages here, and sometimes not so subtle. Now, let's talk about the yang side of women. What is allowed? Okay, the only way that women are allowed to express themselves, think that they, at least, okay, let me speak for myself. When I first moved into the business world, I thought I had to put on that male suit and act that part that the leader is. So, you know, what do we think of women like that? Those aggressive, you know what? Aggressive, prostitute, witch, controlling, talkative, bitchy. You know, that's the yang energy. So that's not too cool. So we're allowed to be pretty receptacles, and men, the masculine energy is allowed to dominate. That's the story if you look at our commercials. Okay, I think I've made my point there. Okay, so how does this show up? This shows up as what I would call unconscious leadership. In politics, in religion, in academics, in business. Okay? It's the patriarchal model that we use. So what happens with that? In business, what that looks like is the exploitation of resources, the unlimited search for profit, quest for profit. I mean, when I was in school, in grade school, we were told that the United States was powerful because of its tremendous resources. Who else was told that message, right? Our natural resources. That was our strength. Well, that's a great strength until they're all gone. Praying to the market god, exploiting our resources. That is really getting away from the earth, the symbol of woman. Okay? Did you know, here was another article, that they did like a 45-year study. Here's why we need women in business and women leadership. Okay, so they studied CEOs, male CEOs, for 45 years. And they found that if a man had a son, then on average, the income of the employees would be reduced by $100 a year. Like, I got to gather my resources. I got a son here. I got to make sure there's enough for him. But if the CEO had a daughter, the income of the average employee went up $100 a year because they were transformed by understanding, nurturing, caring, making life a safe place for this child. Look it up, New York Times. That's why we need the influence of women. The title of the article is Why Men Need Women. Now, I'm not saying that women don't need men. I'm actually talking about balancing. Academics, how does this patriarchal model show up? Just like this. Just like Karen's professor. I'm the expert at the lectern. I get to speak. You got to listen. And then we can have a Q&A where you can ask me questions. But that's just, worshiping me, the great expert, which is why we're going to do something a little bit different at the end here. And then we have things like what happened to my aunt, a minister, graduated in 1945 from Union Theological Seminary during World War II. Professors refused to call on her because she was a woman and was taking up a space that they felt should have been for a man. They told her that. So that's how we silence the feminine. That's how we silence other voices. In religion, the male as a spiritual leader, God the Father. It's not the only way. I fully believe Jesus was a feminist. Mary Magdalene was his most important apostle. Forgive them, they know not what they do, he said. That's strong. I have a new business that I opened as a result of this training called Women Writing for a Change. And one of the things that we do in our circle, our writing circle, is practice conscious feminine leadership in a variety of ways. For example, we write first, and then everybody gets to share their writing, so all the voices are heard. Okay? So it's not off-the-cuff positioning writing, it's thoughtful. We start with a poem to show reverence for art and words. I had the most fabulous meeting at the Dolores Barr-Weaver Center for Girls the other day. We started a meeting. It was me, Taylo, who's been at this church, and two other women, one of whom I later learned was called the worst mother in the world. She is fabulous. Anyway, the four of us, and Taylo said, "How shall we start?" She said, I feel the need to start with a poem. And she recited from heart that poem that Lois read by Mary Oliver, by heart. That's how conscious feminine leadership can happen in the world. We'll start with a poem. In our group, we have a talking stone so that everybody gets to speak without being interrupted. This is ancient wisdom. In our group, we sit at a circle because in a circle, everyone is on the same level. And we pass the stone. In our group, at every meeting, at the end of it, we do soul cards, where we write what were the gifts and what were the challenges. That's called truth-telling. So unvarnished truth, whatever's going on, we write it down and put it in the basket. Everybody's voice is represented. It can be done. That's how we create a safe container, a safe place for people to live and grow. So, conscious feminine leadership. How does it show up in the world and in our church and in the UU community? So first of all, it's balanced, right? So, for example, I'm sitting on the RSC committee, and I'm always saying, okay, let's make sure we have women as well as men presenting. So we have many voices heard and represented. A beautiful example of how that happens is at the RSC committee meeting. Peter runs that meeting as a conscious feminine leader. We light a candle in the beginning, we sit in a circle, and he makes sure that everybody's voice is heard, one after the other. That is conscious feminine leadership. That is conscious leadership. Balanced. Sustainable, self-supporting. This church has a responsibility to be sustainable and self-supporting. Conscious feminine leadership is also prophetic, as in visionary. Okay, so if you looked up conscious leadership on the internet, they would say, it would sound good. It would say, people, prophets, and planet. What about this? People, purpose, and planet. What's the purpose of business? What is the purpose? Is it to make money for people that are already rich? People will tell me, and I work in the corporate world, well, hey, we're a business. We're here for profit. Why? To sustain. To sustain a community, but not to exploit. One word for conscious feminine leadership would be valuing enoughness. I have enough, I am enough, I do enough. So this unlimited growth, this unlimited seek for profit beyond what's needed can be checked. Enoughness. So just 4 people in this church that to me embody it. I already mentioned Peter and how he runs our meetings. I don't know how we run our board meetings, but I hope they're run by like that. Melody Schachter, she's running for city council. I think she is in the embodiment of the conscious feminine, using her voice to speak up for her values, not in a way to oppress others, but to balance. Mary Claire will stand up. She will stand up and speak her voice, and that is necessary. And then Joe T., he will sit down. I don't know if you saw his Facebook post, but he described how recently he was in the hospital, and he did a just sit, with somebody. A just sit is you just sit and listen to somebody. Just sit. You know, it's very popular these days to talk about leaning in. Okay, that's a way. I'm not so much into leaning in as I am about circling up. Let's circle up. Let's get our own individual life in order. Let's move it out and start hugging others in that other world, and then let's bring it to the outer circle. Let's circle up. 1,000,000 circles, 1,000,000 healthy, safe circles in which men, women, and children can grow and live in a balanced, transformed, evolving way. That is, for me, the way of conscious feminine leadership. And I know that I don't have to have the weight of the world on me if I just do one thing, which is lead from the inside out. Just change me and the way that I see things, and I can change the world.
So much was lost, and so much was missed, that it doesn't seem fair that any boy or any girl should have to carry the weight of the world, should have to carry